I want to bring in now Reid Seybold, an FSU senior who was there when this shooting happened. Reid, thank you very much for joining us at the end of what I'm sure has been a nightmare of a day for you, of course. Glad you're okay, at least physically. Can you tell us where you were when this shooting began?
For sure. So I was in the Bellamy building, which is catty-cornered to the student union. We all of 90 seconds away.
And what happened?
So two people came in talking about a shooter on campus, and so we immediately locked down. We weren't even supposed to be there for class that day, but we had all come in to work on a group project. And so when they came in, we locked down immediately, locked both doors, turned off the lights, got under our desks. And, we had heard some gunshots. We had also heard our door attempted to be opened a number of times. The first one we had initially thought was the shooter when we were in there. But now seeing that he was taken down at the student union, we don't believe it was him.
You think it was maybe law enforcement jiggling the handle, perhaps?
Well, the law enforcement, we know that was the second two times, but okay. It could have been law enforcement. It could have also been someone trying to flee for safety. We really don't know.
You were locked down in that room for about an hour. What was going through your mind at that point, Reid?
Yes, ma'am. So, I really just didn't know what was happening initially. Originally, I thought it could have been a prank, and then that was quickly disposed. And so I was texting everybody I loved, letting know that I loved them. I was getting ready to die, which was harrowing.
And still emotional for you now, I can tell.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Talk me through some of that, Reid, because I have to imagine that you grew up in a generation that you practice active shooter drills. You prepared mentally. You've seen, I'm sure, endless coverage, as we have done here on the news, about school shootings here. And then you find yourself in that locked room, the door handle jiggling, and the worst going through your mind. Yeah.
So, like you said, we had practiced active shooter drills in high school. It didn't really happen in college, but we did what we were taught to do. Like I said, we locked down the room, lights off, and doors closed, and we were just doing what we had become normal to do. It became normal to practice having a shooter on campus shooting my peers.
The suspected shooter has been identified by police as an FSU student by the name of Phoenix Ikner. I know it's a big school. Did you happen to know him?
So I had spent my first 2 years at Tallahassee, now called Tallahassee State College, but we called it TCC. And I was the president of a political talk group we called the Political Roundtable, and he joined the club when I was at TCC. Basically our only rule was no Nazis, colloquially speaking. And he espoused so much white supremacist rhetoric and far right rhetoric as well, to the point where we had to exercise that rule. I also know he was a member of the TCC Turning Point chapter. And since TCC, I have seen him in passing a couple times. Today, I was talking to a friend who had talked to him yesterday, or 2 days ago, pardon me. And he was talking about how he wasn't ready for exams.
To be clear, Reid, I just want to make sure that folks understand this. So you were a transfer student essentially into FSU, right? So you started the first 2 years in Tallahassee, and that is where you knew Phoenix Ikner, the suspected shooter here. And you say that he was essentially, it sounded like, kicked out of a political club that you were in because of his, as you described them, views on white supremacy?
Yes, ma'am. So it wasn't necessarily a formal kicking out, but he was asked not to come back, and was really what had happened was we had, it was a debate back and forth. And after enough times, I mean, he did not feel welcome because he was not welcome with his rhetoric. We allow people of all, beliefs, creeds, whatever. And he somehow found a way to not fit the bill on everyone else.
So what went through your mind, Reid, when you heard that police had identified the suspected shooter in this instance as this individual who you had known for a couple of years?
Initially, pure, unadulterated anger. To think that someone I knew had essentially made me a statistic. To think that, you know, I had conversations with him at a normal level and, you know, person to person. And for it to turn into this, I don't know why he would have done something like this. I don't know where it would have come from, but I'd sure like to find out.
Reid, what's next for you? Are you planning to stay close to campus, go back when it finally does reopen? Are you ready for that?
So all of my stuff is still in the classroom, my iPad, my backpack, all of that.
Okay.
But I had evacuated with some friends, and, you know, we got them home all safe, all fed. And I'm just back at home right now with my boyfriend trying to come down from all this adrenaline.
I bet. Reid Seybold, I'm grateful to you for sharing some of your experiences here on what is, I know, been a very horrific and difficult day. Thank you very much for your time tonight and for being with us here on NBC News. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Hallie.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.